Another interview with me, Jeremy Williams, on how to land your ideal job, get out of the job you hate, and find your ideal career, or dream career, where you work the hours and get the money you want. So that sounds all wonderful. Where do you find, how does this happen then? Firstly, after having talked to a lot of people and researched it rather a lot, I have to say, manage your expectations. Most jobs are crap. Most modern internationals, PLCs, LTDs, corps, they're all run by accountants. They're run by people who've never done the job, have no idea what happens on the ground floor, just view people as assets. They'll just get rid of them as soon as a cheaper asset comes along, just burn them out. They don't even particularly view them as human. That's really is quite a dehumanizing view of them coming down through the line. Sort of a lot of globalization, a lot of Americanization, corporatization. You really got to do your research into what company you're going to work for and what area you're going to work for. You're going to have to Google them and see who's doing it. You've got to find out who's running it. Go onto forums and find out what is their culture. A lot of it is fairly obvious. If the interview is by telephone, if you get sent a questionnaire by email saying, if you had lost on a desert island and you only had a paddle and a few bits of wood, what intuitive ways would you find? Anything like that, sort of bizarre questions. You really need to be talking to whoever you're going to be working for. You need to be very careful of ending up with any company that tries to remove trust, doesn't operate with its employees or anybody else, which is almost all large companies these days. No trust in employees. They try and remove any judgment from the employees. The employee doesn't have anybody working for them, anything to do with them, doesn't have any autonomy, tends to be characterized by dozens and dozens of pages of tick boxes. If somebody's job or your job is to buy something, then you have a huge row of tick boxes to go down. And if somebody's a pound cheaper on something that's £100,000, then you basically have to go to them, even if you look at the person supplying it and think they're a greasy creep who won't be around next month. And the person who charges a five or more, well, they'll probably be quite good to work for. There'll be some backup from them. You can trust them. Basically, most companies do not operate these days on anything resembling trust, empathy in the employees, expecting them to have any judgment, giving them any autonomy to actually do the job, and not just dumping unreasonable demands on them. The selection process might actually be quite easy, because even if you do have an interview, or even if it's by email or whatever, or over the phone, they're just looking for people who talk the talk. And the people who get the jobs these days from a lot of these companies are just ones who know the right words and use them, no matter how greasy they are and how incapable of doing the job. But by the time they find out that they can't do the job, after they've said all the right words, everybody's moved on anyway, so who cares? That makes some sense. Is basically anything that's not dealing with people as human beings. There are a few exceptions to this. There are some fairly large, especially technological companies, that are still run by the people who started them, and they just happen to be nice people. Sophos, I'm told, is companies that are owned and run to some extent by the employees. John Lewis is apparently a good example. NFU is a mutual that's run by the employees. There's quite a few others you can look up for mutuals and companies that are run by the employees, or employees are shareholders. Some motor companies, particularly Japanese ones, I'm told, are very good. You can go work for some Japanese engineering companies, and apparently it's just like meeting your new family. And anybody's a problem is removed immediately. Anybody's argumentative or just attitude. So what you're looking for, typically smaller companies, because they have a different attitude, they still deal with people like people. They still buy the individual rather than they buy the person, rather than going down through lists of tick boxes. If you can possibly meet the person who will actually be working for, as opposed to a lot of companies these days where the HR department goes through a load of tick boxes, presents the manager or the person who's actually going to be doing the employing with 3 candidates, none of whom he likes, but he has to pick one anyway, and they blame him for when he's no good, or she's no good. Smaller companies where you can meet the person and you can actually make a judgment about the boss, and you're going to have to dig them out to some extent. And it's where they're basically looking where they employ on. They look at the person, make a judgment of what they think's inside them. Is where you're looking for a dream job these days, and I have to say it's quite rare. Maybe that's not your dream job. If you just want to just arrive at work, just say I'm clock punching, I'm just going to do my time, get paid. You don't want to think. You just want to zombie out and just block everything out and just. And that's the way you're going to go through your job. You just don't want to think. In many large corporations, that's probably absolutely ideal, because anybody who thinks is now viewed as the enemy. Anybody who comes up with ideas or complains about the system or says I haven't got actually control to do this and such like is quickly marked down as a troublemaker. That's not a very fulfilling way to be in. It can't be very happy because there's so much politics involved with that sort of business as well. Basically, small companies have to check them out. Some larger companies, but you have to find them as well, find reports on them, go on forums. What do they call them? Mutuals and such like. Preferably, well, I would say almost certainly, someone you can actually meet and talk to and make a judgment about the person you're actually going to be working for, who expects a bit more from you, expects judgment and intelligence and thinking and trying and a bit of growth and a bit of honesty. And bear in mind that most companies, large companies these days, do have actually quite a strong culture of lying, as I've found out myself. I used to work as a HGV driver. I used to arrive at see a job advertised, go off to see it, apply for it, go to an interview, and discover the job didn't actually exist. It was just put up there because it was a recruitment agency. They didn't say they were a recruitment agency. They just wanted to sign up more people. The job didn't exist. Just to ask, so what about the Kidderminster job? And they said, oh yeah, the Kidderminster job, oh yeah. And all this sort of thing. So you do have to do a bit of digging, and don't be surprised if you don't have come across some proper prats on the way. I'll go into a bit more about this next time. If you found some of that useful, is that your experience? Have you been in a job market fairly short amount of time and you don't know any different other than this sort of a dehumanizing culture? Are you actually looking for more? Do you know that there is? Anyway, anything you found useful, put below, and any questions you have, put in the comments. Tarmac Shintic.